Sports Talk Line Network is proud to bring you Joshua Griffith.
Nate?
Yeah, no.
Oh, we're good? Okay.
Yeah, we're good.
Oh. So I am so very happy to welcome back to the show Vancouver Whitecaps CEO and sporting director, Axel Schuster.
I want to cover playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the fans to enjoy and experience playoff hockey in Vancouver. I want the Canucks to win a Stanley Cup for this city.
Just, as I said, wild. It's not what you would expect, other than good football, which the NFL, I got to say, they're doing a heck of a job of delivering.
You can't diminish what he's done. And this isn't just to be an honorary award. I think the numbers that he's put together on both sides are warranted of an MVP.
You went right for the crest and gave it a big kiss as you were running towards the fans. It was
so funny, honestly, I always was laughing about players who do that because I'm like, come on, stop this shit. And it just happens out of emotion.
Here's your host, Joshua Griffith.
Hello and welcome back to the Unnamed Sports Show here on the Sports Talk Line Network, where we talk sports 24/7, 365. I am, of course, your host, Joshua Griffith, for this episode 69, where I will be joined by Jake Ellenbogen to talk all things NFL and, of course, the LA Rams. The Rams were able to limp to a finish and clinch the NFC West after a loss to the San Francisco 49ers, but they will face the Arizona Cardinals on Monday night in a super wildcard weekend. So we are going to discuss everything NFL, all things Rams. But before we get to that interview, make sure you hit the like button down at the bottom, subscribe to the Sports Talk Line Network if you don't already, and follow me on Twitter at Joshua Griffith0. Now that we have everything taken out of the way, let's get right to this interview with Jake Ellenbogen. All right, so I'm so thrilled to be joined now by a name that all Rams fans will know, with his amazing coverage on YouTube for the Downtown Rams show and writer for NFL Game Day, Mr. Jake Ellenbogen. Jake, what's happening, man? Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, Joshua, thank you so much for having me. We've linked up a ton on Twitter, so it's nice to finally be on your show and, be able to talk face to face, because this is the first time we're meeting. So, happy to be on.
Yes, it is. And I'm so glad that you're able to join me. And first and foremost, want to make sure that you and your family are staying safe and healthy as we're still rolling through all of these difficult times.
Oh yeah, no, we're pretty good. As many people know, I did lose my grandfather, who meant a ton to me. So that I've been going through that. But as far as COVID and, the flu and other illnesses, we're good. We're all healthy here.
And of course, my condolences to you about
Appreciate
your grandpa,
it.
Jake. It's sent you out a message and stuff, but obviously it's never going to be enough losing one of your grandparents. It's a difficult time, and you look like you guys were really close. So that's a big relationship that you've lost. So
we certainly
strong,
were. No, I appreciate it. We certainly were. And I just know he would just want me to continue doing what I'm doing. He'd probably call me a dodo for not continuing doing what I'm doing, take any sort of time. He's a big, he's a big believer in what I was doing and, the content I was creating. And my favorite thing about him is that he wouldn't know anything I was talking about. He just said it was good and he loved it. So, he doesn't know football. He would just.
Oh, I was just going to ask, was he a Rams fan or?
I mean, I'm sure he would root for the Rams, if it helped, me out, my dad. I mean, we're all Rams fans here. But he was the type of person that would be like, I saw Tiger Woods catch that touchdown the other day to win the Stanley Cup. I mean, that's essentially who he was. So, that was that. But yeah,
that's pretty cool though. I mean, it sounds like he definitely made an attempt, and like you said, he was very supportive of what you're doing, and you're doing some great things. I mean, I'm loving all of your coverage on the Rams through all of the platforms. I mentioned a couple of them, and that probably didn't even hit all of them, but I only have so much time with you, so I can't spend the 30 minutes listing all of the the bylines that you're on and all of the amazing things.
That's fine. I just say, if you're on Twitter, follow me at JK Bogan. If you're not, downtownrams.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, other stuff that I'm on. I'm sure on other platforms. You can find me. You could even just Google Jake Ellenbogen and you'll find some stuff. So no worries about the bylines or anything like that. That's where you can find me.
Isn't that cool to be able to search your name and you just come up with like tons of your...
I signed up for alerts.
Stuff.
So Google tells me now anytime Jake Ellenbogen is in any sort of article or anything. And it was great at first. And now all of a sudden I'm getting spammed because I'm in so many, my video is mentioned in so many blogs and things like that. So many posts, so many forums. Now I'm like, oh boy, what was I thinking here? So.
Well, and it makes sense, right? With everything you're doing. So let's get into some Rams talk here. Obviously, it was a little bit of a falter to end the season. They just can't seem to beat the San Francisco 49ers.
No.
What is the problem against Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers? Because it seems like every time that they play, it's the same script that the 49ers are able to run and beat Sean McVay.
It's weird because, I looked at it generally and I was just like, okay, generally they're 0-6 the last 6 meetings against the Niners, but each game is its own story. It's its own different outcome. And obviously the same outcome, right? They always lose, but it's different how it happens. I mean, you go back to 2019 when the Rams desperately need to win to stay in the playoff race. The Niners actually knocked them out, ironically, in 2019. That was because of, a bad, play where, look, the Rams don't start off, all that well. And then all of a sudden they go off to a good lead. And I think they were up 21-10 and they let the Niners back into it. I remember that because I was with my friend I had not seen in years in Connecticut watching the game. And it just felt so weird because they felt like they should be winning by more, and yet they let the Niners into it. At the end of the game, towards the end, Garoppolo throws one to Emmanuel Sanders, who's left wide open due to a lapse in coverage with Taylor Rapp, and at the time, Jalen Ramsey. For those of you who forgot, Jalen Ramsey did play in the same secondary with Eric Weddle. So, he is joining a team where he knows the secondary coach, Ajiro Evero. He coached, from 2017 and on. He has familiarity with him. He has familiarity with Darius Williams, who came on strong at the end of that season. Taylor Rapp, his familiarity with Terrell Burgess, who he mentored, former Utah Ute in his own right. And of course, Jalen Ramsey. So there's a reason for that, but, kind of going through it, there's different games. I mean, we talk about the 31-10 game earlier in the year against the Niners. And that game, I mean, really the Rams, we weren't ready for it, but the Rams were truly about to fall off a cliff after losing to the Titans. That started a 3-game losing streak. They came back, they made adjustments, but that game, ironically, was because they stopped running the football. They went for, a fake field goal touchdown type of deal that, was horrible. They should never have done anything like it. Keep your offense on the field. No reason to have a fake when you have a guy like Matthew Stafford and, the weapons that they have, but they did. And so they got behind early on. And then they, stopped running the football and, that was that. But in this game, it was a little ironic because the reason they lost, Joshua, is not because of, obviously it could be because they didn't score as many points as the Niners, but the reason they lost is essentially because of two things. One, they tried so hard to establish the run, so much so, Sean McVay, the exact opposite the first time, tried so hard to establish the run, so much so that actually took them out of the rhythm that they were in. Stafford, despite not having much protection and not having a run game, was incredible to start the game. First off, the second thing was tackling. That's not on coaching. That's not on scheme. That is simple execution. And they were not doing that. They were not tackling. It's that simple. The casual fan of the league could have told you, hey, why doesn't this team actually tackle? That's probably why they're losing. They had simple plays where normally they're not that bad tackling, but we already know the stats show they missed 19 tackles, a season high for the team in that game. That was ultimately the reason they lost. But if you want to blame the offensive line, you could absolutely do that. they gave Stafford no opportunity, because it really all falls on the fact that in the interior, Brian Allen, the center, was getting beat left and right. And so because of that, you have the pressure in the interior. I always say quarterbacks can step up and they can, combat the edge pressure. No matter how good of an edge defender you have rushing the quarterback, a quarterback can slide up in the pocket and make him look silly. But when you have interior pressure, it makes it that much difficult. It allows the edge defenders, like a guy like Bosa or even Samson Ebukam, who I believe got in on a sack in this one. These guys that are coming off the edge, they're getting help in the interior. It makes it easier. The pocket collapses. And that's the thing. So when the Niners were getting pressure up the edge or up the middle on Brian Allen, it basically the whole offensive line caved in. Stafford had no pocket to step into. And so that was also a key thing when they needed those, those throws, those big time plays. Stafford was still somehow able to make them, but this game could have been a blowout if that was not the case.
Well, you gave me a couple avenues to go with here, Jake. With the defensive line and getting the internal push from the middle, which is something that Aaron Donald does so well. So we could go there, or we could go into Matthew Stafford, which we talked about. And I know that there's a deep rabbit hole that me and you are going to go down with the Matthew Stafford and Jared Goff thing. So maybe we should go to how effective Aaron Donald has been this year for the Rams into the interior D-line.
Well, he's been incredible. I mean, in any year, he's been incredible. I mean, he's the best player in the league. And really what it comes down to is the only reason he's not going to win Defensive Player of the Year is because TJ Watt tied the sack record. I mean, essentially, he was the defensive player in the year.
Great season for TJ Watt, too.
Oh, absolutely. No disrespect to him, taking nothing away. He did that in 15 games, I believe. So really impressive there. And personally, I would vote for him as well to kind of give him his Defensive Player of the Year. I do feel like with those sacks, you have to give it to him. But at the same time, Donald was the better defensive player. He did more for his team. We're talking about, PFF's win above replacement rating. He gave them about 2 wins above replacement. That's saying a lot. They also dealt with the fact that they lost Sebastian Joseph Day. So while Greg Gaines stepped in and was, incredible, I do think a lot of that was due to the fact that Aaron Donald, was able to take on double teams. And, I think that's the big thing people just don't realize is it's not about taking on a double team, because I see a lot of fans around the league on Twitter and whatnot. They will say, well, this guy gets double teamed all the time. I watch all the games. I should know. And that's fine. But when you're talking about win rate in those double teams, because no one gets double teamed more than Nick Bosa, actually. And Nick Bosa doesn't have the win rate that Aaron Donald has. Aaron Donald is playing a tougher position. He's playing a 3-4, technically a 3-4 interior defensive lineman. And so because of that, it makes it incredibly difficult being in that situation. You don't have the edge. You don't have the leverage. You have to work your way and grind your way through the trenches. You have to go through all the muck and everything. It's like going right through trench warfare we're talking about, and World War I or whatever. You're going through the muck. You're walking through all the scrap on the ground, and you really have to earn, your way through this, because if you don't, you get stuck in there. And we've seen Aaron Donald is somebody, he tries to make something happen, and if he doesn't make a play or, he's not able to get through and break through, he's stuck there, because there's 2 or 3 guys on him. So it's incredibly difficult for a player like Aaron Donald to do that. But furthermore, for a guy like Aaron Donald to do that from the interior, and on top of that, set up other guys to succeed. He may not get all the sacks. If you're using, his lack of sacks as a knock on him, then you're not, getting it right. The pressure is what is amounting to the sacks from Von Miller, the sacks from Leonard Floyd, Greg Gaines' improvement this season. He makes everyone around him better, and his ability to pressure the quarterback leads the offense to not even be able to run a 5-7 step drop back, not even run those type of long developing plays. Aaron Donald has changed the game in ways that people don't get, because quite frankly, no offense that goes in against the Rams can run what they want to run. They always have to account for Aaron Donald and how, the internal clock, that ball needs to be out in 2.2 to 2.7 seconds, if not sooner. So that's the thing. He comes in and instantly, oh, we're a deep passing team. We want to take shots down the field. Now all of a sudden you can't. You have to settle for the check downs and the smaller throws.
No, I love that you mentioned that the 5 to 7 second drops, like it takes away from the other team's offense when you're playing the Rams, when you're playing Aaron Donald, and the things that he's been able to do for gains, like you said, it made him kind of almost a premier player on the Rams defense this season because of all the attention that Aaron Donald's getting. And like you said, like he's muddying things up. Like if it's a run play too, he's getting double teamed on a run play and he's still, making the move. Or if it's a backside play, I love, like, he's so fast and he does. I love when the commentators just mentioned they're like, he's doing pass rushing moves on run plays. And it's so effective. He's able to like break the backside and get a tackle for a loss. Like his contributions to the Rams defense are just amazing. And I don't think it's something that the casual fan picks up on.
No, I don't think so either. Obviously when he gets a sack, then everybody's like, oh, Aaron Donald's so great. Yeah, but it's not even those plays to me. It's the plays, where all of a sudden, Leonard Floyd, who was getting beat, by the way, not saying he always does. I think he's had a really good year. But doesn't have to be Leonard Floyd. It could be Okoronkwo or it could be Justin Hollins. And it's not to say those guys don't win their matchups at times, but at times they don't. And if they don't win their matchups, then, what it does is all of a sudden, okay, now you're still engaged with the guy. But if Aaron Donald is chasing the quarterback and you get the sack out of that, you didn't win that matchup. The guy ran into your side and you got the sack because he basically ran into your sack. So because of that, Aaron Donald doesn't get a credit. It's not like it's the NBA or the NHL where you get assists for goals and points and things like that. There's none of that in the NFL. You get an assist for also, it's a half sack if you tackle him, at the same time behind the line of scrimmage. That would be a half sack. And if you tackle him with another guy past the line of scrimmage, it's a half tackle or, assisted tackle, but you don't get an assist to the sack. And that's the thing. So if Aaron Donald doesn't make any sort of contact with the quarterback, he's not getting a sack or a half sack or an assisted tackle or a solo tackle. Essentially what he's doing is he's creating opportunities for everyone around him, and he's not reaping the rewards on the stat sheet, but he doesn't care because that is why he's the most valuable player in the league, regardless of position value. We talk about obviously quarterbacks are the most valuable, but he is the best player because he absolutely changes the way you yourself come in. You're thinking, okay, we're an air raid offense. We're going to throw 500 yards. We're going to throw 50 times, whatever. You can't do that against the Rams. And especially because, and keep this in mind, yes, you have Jalen Ramsey. Yes, you have Darius Williams. You have good safeties when they're healthy, but Aaron Donald's also making their job easier because they don't have to, cover anywhere near as long. So because of that, he just makes everyone's job easier. One guy in the interior changes the entire game, changes the entire game plan for the one team on the other side of the field. And then on the other sideline, he's making things easier for every single person, all 10 guys, including himself. But he has to go through all of, the muck, so to speak. And that is not an easy thing to do. And that's why, to me, he is just the most dominant player in the league.
I would 100% agree. And I think we could probably spend about like 30, 45 minutes just talking about Aaron Donald. One of the things I wrote down was just going along with what you mentioned, he changes the position of the pocket. And for anyone who's ever played football, when the position of the pocket's changed, that means every route change. That means every receiver that they're looking for, every blocking scheme that they're trying to get, it's thrown off. And Aaron Donald can single-handedly do that, which is just absolutely amazing. So I would agree. He's every year, like I'm trying to find a reason. I'm like, well, why shouldn't he be defensive player of the year? Okay, maybe we'll give it to somebody else this year.
I called it getting Belichicked. I think it was last year. Because Bill Belichick's the best coach in the league. No one can tell me otherwise. And
he should win.
Probably win every year.
Yeah, every single year.
This year, especially because everybody's been telling me, well, Tom Brady made Bill Belichick. And now without Tom Brady, he's in the playoffs, had a chance to win the division, and he only didn't because his rookie quarterback threw some interceptions, costly interceptions, because a rookie did it. And he still won 11 games or 10 games with this rookie quarterback. So I think Mac Jones has played well, but I think Bill Belichick deserves a ton of credit with what he's done with this team. I mean, they don't have a superstar wide receiver. They don't have a Justin Jefferson or an Adam Thielen like in Minnesota. They're not dealing with, a Van Jefferson even. We're talking the best receiver they have is potentially their tight end, Hunter Henry, who's really stepped up. We're talking about, Jacoby Myers. We're talking about, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, who I really like. But again, they don't have a game-breaking player. Then you look at running back. I mean, he led, he's one of the top, touchdown getters in the league as far as it goes, and Damian Harris, and he had a really good year. But that's not like having, Saquon Barkley fully healthy, or it's not even having Cam Akers really. I mean, he's limited in the fact that, yeah, he'll get those premium touches in the red zone and get you those touchdowns. He's not the guy that will necessarily finish and house a 60-yard touchdown. And then his, pass catching ability isn't there. So that's my point, is that like really what, Belichick's been able to do with that team has been so impressive. It's what Aaron Donald continues to do, no matter who he plays with, whether it was Chris Long, Robert Quinn, Michael Brockers in St. Louis, or, now it's with Von Miller and Leonard Floyd and Greg Gaines and Sebastian Joseph Day and whoever. He's continued to have consistency, and he's continued to be the best player in the sport.
Okay, so we'll get back to the Rams shortly, but you switched it over. So what other storylines besides obviously the New England Patriots are you kind of looking forward to for this Super Wildcard weekend?
Going to be crazy. I think definitely, you talk about the Patriots. I mean, going up against the Bills, that's a huge matchup. Honestly, I don't know who's going to win that game. I think it's going to be close. I don't necessarily agree with favoring the Bills 4.5 points or whatever they're favored right now. I think
weather is going to be a factor in that one.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's going to be like a 1 or 2 point game. I think it's going to be really close. I kind of lean Patriots, but we'll see. I think the Patriots are the better coach team, although I think Sean McDermott's great, but we'll see about that. Then looking at the Steelers-Chiefs game, I think that game is going to be way closer than people think. I mean, I like the Steelers in this one.
The Chiefs have been good, but I agree. Yeah.
You know how you could tell that people just aren't watching the Chiefs is that they keep saying they're going to win by 50. You're not watching the Chiefs this year. You watched the Chiefs the year prior.
Have the Chiefs scored 50 points this year?
They haven't.
I don't think so.
They had a couple games where they scored, over 40, but Patrick Mahomes hasn't been the unstoppable force you're used to. Teams aren't blitzing him, and it's forcing him into, decisions, and bad decisions at that. And it's not like he's getting picked every which way, but I mean, he's not the most accurate quarterback this year. He's not the most explosive quarterback this year. He has a bunch of games where he didn't throw for 4 touchdowns like he did the year prior. I mean, this is the thing, is that the Chiefs offense isn't as explosive, dynamic, and dominant as everyone else wants to assume it is. And so when you look at the Chiefs Steelers game, I'd ask you to go back to that game when, they blew them out. Everyone's just assuming this is going to, like Nick Wright coined it, better than a bye. That is absolutely insane. I would not want to play the Steelers the first round when I'm the 2 seed and they're the 7 seed. They have nothing to lose, everything to gain. It's Big Ben's farewell tour. They're probably getting Juju Smith-Schuster back this week. Yeah, you probably forgot about him. He's going to be back. They're going to get James Washington back. TJ Watt's not going to be 10% healthy like the last time they played. And oh, by the way, they'll probably also have linebacker Devin Bush back. They'll probably have Joe Hayden back. So as you see what I'm getting here, like the last time they played them, they weren't very healthy. Now this is probably the healthiest they'll be. I don't expect that to be the blowout that people are saying. Chiefs probably win, but if the Steelers keep it, within 8, which is, by the way, like the spread is like 12.5, like I would take the Steelers to cover all day, every day. I really think this is going to be a closer game than people think. In addition to that, the Eagles-Bucks game, I keep forgetting the Eagles lost by 6 earlier in the year on Thursday Night Football against the Buccaneers. I didn't love the way they played against the Cowboys at all, but they also benched a lot of guys. They didn't play Hurts. They didn't play Dallas Goedert. They didn't play Miles Sanders. So there's a very good chance that the Eagles are going to come out a lot better than they did the last game of the year. And I'm sorry, but I mean, right now I'm picking the San Francisco 49ers to upset Dallas. I don't think Dallas is as great as everyone's saying. They absolutely 100% should not be the 3 seed over the Rams, but they can be, because for teams that are the 3 seed as opposed to the 4, they have a less than a 3% chance of winning the Super Bowl since 1975. When you look at the 4th seed, for whatever reason, they win the Super Bowl 10% of the time. When you look at 3 seeds, that goes down to 7%. Really interesting stuff there that I did pick up on and I did notice. But it is something to point out that the 3 seed normally doesn't do all that well in the playoffs. And the Rams were the 3 seed the last time they got upset in the playoffs against the Falcons. So, that's something to keep in mind.
Well, like you mentioned, Dallas probably shouldn't be the seed that they are. The Rams probably shouldn't be the seed that they are. A little bit of a blunder on the last game of the season, and some help from the Seahawks. I mean, I guess, all Rams fans love when we get help from the Seahawks.
No, yeah.
But I mean, looking at the Dallas San Francisco 49ers matchup, I would 100% agree with you. Like, I can see Dallas getting taken out. I can see some definitely some underdog, some wins in this wild card.
Well, I think, the key matchup there and the key X factor is going to be Deebo Samuel. I mean, he always is. And, we saw what the Niners did. They didn't even really get Kittle involved. I mean, Kittle couldn't really do much against the Rams, and they still got great contribution out of Jawan Jennings, who had a huge play in overtime to really set up that field goal. Deebo Samuel, like I mentioned, Brandon Ayuk, who I highlighted before the game to really step up, because I felt like the Rams would go out of their way to stop a Samuel or, stop Kittle. Yeah. The fact is, I mean, Dallas has one of the best defenses in football this year, but they haven't really played anybody. And when they play, big time teams that are in the playoffs, might I add, they lose. Buccaneers earlier in the year. I mean, we talk about, 2 weeks ago, they lost to Arizona at home. I mean, there's no excuse for that. So, I do think the Niners will go in there. And another big thing, Niners fans took over SoFi Stadium. Whether people want to admit it or not, they did. But the Niners fans also have taken over Jerry World before. So you get that Niners fan base in Jerry World, this weekend. I'm telling you, I really feel like the Niners are going to win. I don't know if they'll beat Green Bay in the next round, but I do have the 49ers taking down Dallas in the first.
I think people forget how good the San Francisco 49ers fans travel.
Yes.
I'm up here in Canada in, like Vancouver, British Columbia, and we had a Seahawks 49ers like bowl game years and years and years ago, and people still have swag from that. And it's basically they're either Seahawks or 49ers fans up here. So as a Rams fan, I have to, touch foot lightly to make sure I don't upset anybody. But I do want to get back onto the Rams a little bit here. I want to talk about Cooper Cupp. I want to talk about his season, because from my standpoint, he is the offensive player of the year. He's an MVP. I know it's going to go to a quarterback, but it shouldn't. It should go to Cooper Cupp for what he's done this year. I know people can say, oh, there's an extra game, but the things that he's done, the intangibles, and I know, Jake, you watch a lot of the games. You watch everything. You break down all the minutes. You break down everything. The extra stuff that he provides beyond getting, 145 receptions, 1,947 yards, 16 touchdowns. The guy blocks like a tight end. He blocks like a tackle. The extra stuff that he brings, like he is an MVP in my mind. Is there any reason he shouldn't get MVP?
None whatsoever.
Okay.
I think if Jonathan Taylor went out and had, a 200-yard performance, 2 touchdowns, led the Colts single-handedly to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in that game, then we're talking a different story. But I understand Aaron Rodgers, best quarterback this year. He had a great year. Tom Brady had a great year, despite the fact that Arians had him throwing bombs when they're up by 30. But, what it comes down to is the Rams didn't do that. When Cupp was in, he was in when it actually mattered, when, the win wasn't guaranteed. He came out of games in the third quarter, against the Giants. I was at that game, and against the Texans and against the Bears. I mean, they didn't play the full game. They, rested some of their starters. And, this is the thing, is that they're all about winning. They're not about the stats. It's not about flash. He's not a diva. Like you said, he's one of the best blocking receivers in football. He's the best receiver after the catch in football. No one can tell me otherwise. The guy's a running back when he has the ball in his hands. And, I was wrong about him because I thought Robert Woods was going to have a better year. And Cooper Cupp just went to a whole other level. Another thing is Robert Woods being injured. It may have given him more targets, but it made it harder on him. They were using Woods in kind of a sacrificial lamb type of role where he would run these routes entirely to run routes to get Cupp open. He would run routes where, it's a rub route.
He would run the go. Yep. And get the cross underneath.
Exactly. You get the shallow cross, things like that. Yeah. So, that's the thing. They were using him to get him open. When he got hurt, then they had to do things, the hard way. We saw Cupp finally get a holding call for him against the Niners this past week. That's been happening for weeks. So I'm glad the officials opened up their eyes to that. But look, this guy has one of the greatest seasons a receiver's ever had. Quite honestly, I think it's the best. You look at Calvin Johnson, his 2012 season. Obviously he breaks the record, right? It's great, but that amounted to 4 wins. They won 4 games that year. He had about 100 plus more passing opportunities than Cupp as far as, passing snaps that they had. The Rams didn't throw as much as the Lions did that season. The season prior, I would argue, Calvin Johnson had a better year. He didn't have as many yards, but they won it, 10-6, made the playoffs, all of that. Cooper Cupp, they go 12-5. They needed everything he did to just go 12-5. That's the incredible thing when you really think about it. This team barely barely won the division. This team only got the 4 seed, and they needed Cooper Cupp to go for over 1,900 yards, have 16 touchdowns, and over 140 receptions to do that. And so that to me is why he is the MVP.
He was elite. I love that you mentioned that about Megatron's season with that, because there's score differential now that we're starting to see brought up with stats, right? It's featured prominently in hockey, and now it's getting covered in NFL and stuff too. Like when it's garbage time, that these guys are just hauling up massive yardage and massive stats. Like, well, what does it matter? But like you said, Cooper Cupp, they needed everything that he did this year to make it to a 12-5 record.
Yeah. I mean, and I think he's so much so the MVP that they needed him in the overtime period, and they didn't even get him a target. I understand, Stafford was probably trying to throw to him, and OBJ reached his hand out, but they didn't get it to him. And, to me, that kind of goes to show you, I mean, who was there in the final minutes of the game when you needed a score? Who was there to tie up the game? That was, Cooper Cupp. Who was there to take the lead? That was Cooper Cupp. That was Matthew Stafford. But Matthew Stafford throwing that amazing throw off his back foot ended up hurting his toe. Cooper Cupp still comes down with it in perfect coverage. I mean, that's just Cooper Cupp. And then, the back shoulder fade into the corner pylon of the end zone, getting his feet in bounds, having the wherewithal to come down with the catch, and also make sure that you're, know where you are on the field. That was huge. And, he had been doing that the whole year. I think they were 10-0 going into that game when he caught a touchdown. It just shows you, and it's not even that, just you look at the Calvin Johnson, season in 2012, he had a lot of games where, he had 200 yards, right? Cooper Cupp didn't have any 200-yard games, but Cooper Cupp almost did it the most impressive way, I think. Sure, he didn't have the 200-yard games, but he had the 140-yard games, and his worst game was a 64-yard game against Arizona, like week 4 of the year. His second worst game, he barely was over 90 yards. So basically the worst thing he did the whole year is have 64 yards. There are some guys in this league that kill for 64 yards, and there are some guys in this league that never see 100 yards, and he did that 10 times or 11 times this season. So I don't think we've ever seen a season at his position that consistent. You've seen even Justin Jefferson. He had games where, that one game on Monday Night Football against the Bears, everyone's like, oh, they're going to destroy the Bears. They barely beat the Bears. Kirk Cousins only completed 11 passes, and he had a game where he had 4 catches for like 44 yards and a touchdown. Cooper Cupp didn't even have a game with only 44 yards or 4 receptions. He was constantly there for Stafford, and he was constantly there, moving the chains. This guy led the league in first downs. He was just unbelievable. And when you look at Rodgers and Brady, no way are these the best seasons in the history of the position. And they're not even close to the best seasons on their own ledger. When you look at Rodgers, last year was way better than this year. Not taking anything away. This year was a good year for Rodgers, obviously the best in the league at quarterback. But same thing with Brady. I mean, he's had better seasons in the past. And quite honestly, when you look, he didn't even have as many air yards thrown or completed as Matthew Stafford. Stafford just simply didn't throw it, 119 more times. And that's, that was the difference there. So to me, it's Cup, and I don't really think it's that close.
Yeah, I saw you put out some nice stats of quarterback passing the last couple of days here. And yeah, I mean, you mentioned, I want to bring it back for this one. I'm going to change topics when we get into a fun one, because I'm a giraffe Jared Goff truther. And you are a Matthew Stafford winner here. So we'll get into that quickly. But like you said, they award consistency with the MVP, and they give it to, players like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers every year, but they won't give the coaching to Bill Belichick every year.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like it's the exact same thing. And that's kind of, I think, what I'm taking away from what you're saying is, like, we get these numbers from quarterbacks all the time. They have one extra year, but like what Cooper Cupp just did, Triple Crown winner for the first time since Jerry Rice.
Not only that, it's becoming, everyone says it's a passing league. Mahomes wasn't anywhere near the top 5 in passing. It's such a passing league that, it took 17 games for the NFL to have one passer go over the 5,000 yard mark. It took, the final game for both, Matthew Stafford and Tom Brady to get over 40 touchdowns. I believe they were the only 2 that had 40 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. I think Rodgers had 41. But my point is that it's such a passing league, and the quarterbacks are so invaluable that all of a sudden we've decided that now the MVP, which has had a kicker win it back in 1982 and has had running backs win it in the past, now it's a quarterback league. Now it's a quarterback award, and the offensive player of the year is runner up, which is really actually the MVP. Go back to 2017. Todd Gurley absolutely should have won it over Tom Brady. But the fact is, if a quarterback's going to win it this year, to get my vote, you would have had to do what Cup did as a quarterback. And what would you have had to do as a quarterback? You would have had to beat Peyton Manning's touchdown record of 55, or come close to it, at least 54, 55 touchdowns. There wasn't a 50-yard touchdown passer this season, and you would have had to throw over 5,500 yards. And the closest was Tom Brady at 5,300, which, as I said, his completed air yards weren't as good as some of the other guys. He just threw it 119 times more than Stafford. So that is my thing. I didn't see a quarterback come in, take the 17-game season, and really, grab it by the balls and made this, a huge season. To me, I saw really good quarterback play for what it was, but it's becoming more of a running game, type of deal, because there's not as many bell cows, sure. But what we're seeing is increased, at least I'm seeing it anyway, the increased running back by committee approach. And so there's not as many throwing quarterbacks or quarterbacks throwing deep down the field anymore. And this isn't as much of a passing league as people make it out to be. It is, but Cooper Cupp, what he's able to do in a year where no quarterback threw 50 touchdowns, goes to show you that, he got 16 out of those Stafford 42, 41, That's impressive. And then on top of that, Stafford didn't throw for 5,000 yards, and he almost had 2,000 of them. So, I mean, take that into account. That's really impressive for Cupp to do that in this type of season.
And the targets too. Like,
oh yeah,
you mentioned that. Okay, we could talk Cooper Cupp too all day. We could talk Aaron Donald all day. We can talk Cooper Cupp all day. But something that I do want to get into, because I was big against it when it happened. I was not on board with the Matthew Stafford trade. I know you were. You have been a big Matthew Stafford fan, giving it to all of us people that were doubters before. I don't know, maybe I missed my simple giraffe, but why was I so wrong, Jake?
Well, and I understand it. It's one of those things where you see this guy. I mean, we kind of grew up with him. I mean, when Jared Goff, I remember the trade. I wanted Carson Wentz first off, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Actually, that was my handpicked guy before he even became a first round, talked about guy. I wanted him in the second because I had watched a lot of him at North Dakota State. But, I just think when people look at it, it's more emotion than it is really a football. Like, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. Not everybody, but I see a lot of people when they're talking about Jared Goff, it's all about, well, he led us to a Super Bowl and he did this and he did that and he won and all that.
He was he was my baby, Jake. He was my baby.
But you see what I mean, though? You're putting, like, not you specifically.
Oh, no. Yeah, throw me right into the ranks there. Yeah, 100%. It was emotional, and I missed my Jared Goff, and I was like, well, Jordan Rodriguez, she told me he can throw downfield still.
Yeah, it's the thing I look at is with Jared Goff. This guy comes to the Rams. He's drafted number 1 overall. You always have that special connection to a number 1 overall pick. Same thing with Sam Bradford. There's still people that to this day believe he was screwed and had 5 different offensive coordinators. And, they paid Jake Long $8 million at the time. That was a ton of money for left tackle to basically get him hurt in the preseason against a 3rd string pass rusher. Neither here nor there. But what it comes down to is that was about, 6 years ago now, not even 6, a little bit 5-ish, a little bit closer to 6. So think about this. I'm 26 right now. I was 21 years old, 20 years old around that when the Rams got Jared Goff. And I feel like I've changed incredibly as a person in that amount of time. I've really grown up. And that's when I think that was really, this has been kind of like, I've been peaking as a follower of the sport, as an analyst, because I had not done that since, that when I first started my content creation path, when I first started writing, when I first started the website Downtown Rams, writing at Rams Wire, writing fan post section on Turf Show Times, starting the podcast with Blaine Grisack. When I started that was 2016. That was when Jared Goff took over as the starting quarterback. And that was, the moment he came to LA. That was the moment the Rams came to LA. So a lot of those LA fans, those are very good times. This is a time where, obviously they weren't very good that year. They went 4-12, but this is a time where the Rams came back to LA after 20 plus years. First off, the second thing is they remember he brought them back to the Super Bowl. And so it's not all of it, but most of it is emotional based. Plus, keep in mind, most people, because I've been a Stafford supporter for a long time. And I actually did like watching him. I liked watching the Lions. I liked watching Calvin Johnson, Marvin Jones, Kenny Galladay, etc. I watched these games and I was watching him and I was like, you know what? He's unfairly treated. He's unfairly thrown under the bus. This team gave up 45 in this playoff game. He put up 4 touchdowns in his first ever playoff game against the Saints. The Saints probably couldn't have been any better at that point. That was at their peak. Yeah. And they still gave up 45 points. So it's not like, what do you want Stafford to do? He had 4 touchdowns in that game. You look at the Dallas Cowboys game. If they called that pass interference call, if they did call, if they don't pick it up on Brandon Pettigrew trying to come back to the football and the guy not allowing him to get back to it on a 3rd and 8, there's a good chance that the Lions win that game against Dallas. And then you look at the 3rd game. Are we really going to hold it against him that his running back was Zach Zenner playing against the Legion of Boom Seahawks? Sorry, I'm not going to. So what it comes down to is this. Matthew Stafford, I watched from afar. I actually watched the games. He was killing it. but he didn't have the supporting cast he does now. Obviously, that goes to show you. All of a sudden, he goes to a team and all this stuff that we were talking about, he wins the division. And everyone's like, well, he went 12-5, and Jared Goff only, he went 10-6. So it was only a 2-win difference. Look at this season, though. 13 wins, you would have been tied for the league lead in wins this year. It was different this year. So Matthew Stafford leads this team 12-5 without a top 10 running attack, without a number 1 defense, and, wins the division. But last year, Jared Goff with a number 1 defense, with a top 10 rushing attack, they finish barely making the playoffs. They had to have John Wolford win. Going into that game, we thought that was a win and you're in scenario. We actually found out you would have ended up being able to make it despite that. But regardless, neither here nor there. The point is Stafford adds more value. Stafford is the better quarterback. And while Goff was in a really good position, he started to, I don't think he was not trying. I understand there's people out there that think that like he stopped caring because he took it for granted. I don't think that was it at all. I think he was tested to a limit that he couldn't ascend past. I mean, I really think when Vic Fangio set the tone and, really put the blueprint on how to stop McVay's offense, in that 2018 season, then Bill Belichick emulated that. Then everyone emulated that. And you look at 2019, it was a disaster. Jared Goff is still throwing deep down the field, like Sean McVay was doing in 2018, but the results aren't as good. The passer rating goes down. The completion percentage goes way down to about 62%. And then 2020, sure, he's more careful with the ball, and it helps people's argument because they'll throw, without any context, they'll say, well, his passer rating was 66% and, he's completing a bunch of passes and he doesn't have as many interceptions. Yeah, but Stafford doubled his touchdown production. And what it really comes down to is it's not just the interceptions. Jared Goff has always had an issue fumbling the football. It's only the fumbles that you lose that hurt you, but they still hurt you even when you fumble. So he fumbled the ball a lot, and teams really just didn't take him seriously to the point where his average air yards were the lowest in the league. That means he wasn't throwing downfield, and it was making it harder for running backs. So when you look at it, yes, I think it is a personal thing. I think it's emotional about why some people can't let go of the fact that the Rams trade away Jared Goff. But then also going back to my point with Stafford is that from far away, I could see what he was doing. I saw all his games. A lot of people didn't watch those games. They watched, and what I'm going to say here. When do the Lions always play in front of the entire country? It's on Thanksgiving. And that is the only, a lot of these fans, they won't admit it, but the only time they saw Stafford was when he was in the playoffs, which wasn't a ton, and he went 0-3 in, and on Thanksgiving. Yeah. And when you play on a bad team, you don't get the benefit of the doubt by everybody. You get it from people that are willing to use context. You get it from people that are willing to look at multiple lenses, but you don't get it from the casual fan. And the majority of fans in the NFL are casual fans. They don't follow like you and I. They don't follow like, a lot of people on Twitter even. Not everybody can just be assumed to know everything about the league. And I don't even know everything about the league. But what it comes down to is when you have those guys, you have those situations, they saw Stafford, they saw him lose. And when you're constantly told by the talking heads and the mainstream media saying he's 0-3 in the playoffs, I've never heard them once mention Zach Zenner as their running back. I've never once heard them mention that the Cowboys won that game after they picked up the defensive pass interference. I've never once heard them mention that he had 4 touchdowns against the Saints and explain with context that they had a chance in that game and the defense completely went off the rails and completely failed. I've never once heard them mention that. It's always a bash session with Matthew Stafford. And we've seen it. Players are like that, across sports. We talk about all the time. I mean, Russell Westbrook, he's Russell Westbrick. The fact that you can even say that on, live television tells me it's kind of ridiculous and shows you where our analysis is nowadays. But really, that's what I'm talking about, is that people haven't given him the chance because it's a combination. I've seen him on Thanksgiving. He doesn't win. I've seen him in the postseason. He doesn't win. And that guy on First Take or First Things First or whatever the hell, show is telling me he's bad. So I'm going to listen. And that's what's happened.
Well, I starred my comment, things I left out of my article. multiple times when you were going on your rant. But yeah, it's like you said, that there's things we leave out. There's things that we're not looking at, that even me that, watches the NFL, on a daily basis and keeps up with all the games and stuff. Like, yeah, like it's we're always looking at the primetime things and not the little stats. And you bring up all of the playoff losses with the Detroit Lions. And yes, and I just keep adding exclamation marks to I left things out of my article when I was saying how much better Jared Goff was than Matthew Stafford. So, Jake, I knew you were going to clear that up for me. So I'm so glad about that. You talked about getting into the industry and getting into, covering the Rams. I kind of want to finish off with that because we're already going on like 35, 40 minutes here. Like I knew we would.
I bring it 100% wherever I go. I think that. I think I said that the other day. I can never, for lack of a better term, can I say it?
You can say it. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. We have a couple. I can strike out a couple. So I'm good.
Yeah. I can never, for lack of a better term, half-ass anything that I go on. I take, everyone's time very seriously. I'm busy. You're busy. I'm not going to waste your time. You're not going to waste my time. Hopefully. Not you, but I mean, maybe somebody in the future might try to just, pipe bomb me in an interview. Regardless though, I mean, for real though, I mean, like if you're going on someone's show and you're, giving 110% on yours, but then you go on theirs and you give them 70, like that's not right. And like, I've never been a fan of that. So I come off as like, I'm sure I talk a lot and, I come off as like, this is how I am. And this is how, I feel like I'm not toothpaste. Like I'm gonna, go in the same way I go in on my videos and use as much of my, like, talking with my hands and having like enthusiasm, that is how I've always been. Not how I was taught necessarily, but I just kind of, this is my craft. And, some people like it and some people don't. And so I wasn't going to just change myself and make myself more dull or make your show more dull because my show, like, you know what I mean? So that's that.
Well, I very much enjoy everything he did. I mean, I was like, oh, I'll catch up with his latest. I follow your stuff as it comes out normally. That. And the latest thing, I was like, oh, he's got a little update on, safety Eric Weddle being picked out. I was like, an hour and 15 minutes. I was like, really? It's all is this all going to be about Eric Weddle? Yes, pretty much all about Eric Weddle. You're like, oh, I'll break down you gave your brief prediction and you broke down a little bit of stuff, but it was literally like an hour and 15 minutes about Eric Weddle. And I was like, okay, this man, like this, you do your craft properly. And I've seen how you interact with other people on social media and people who are, whether they're like me and they're, covering other sports and deep diving and doing their shows or doing their podcasts or stuff like that, or they just maybe even want to talk football. You're always really just open to join them and have the interactions. And I think that's a really, really great thing to see.
Yeah, I try to be. What's really inspiring is my favorite band, Starset. They're this cinematic rock band. Shout out to them. But
Starset?
Yeah. They're like, really inspired by like Breaking Benjamin, David Bowie. Like they have that kind of sound. But essentially I kind of got that vibe from them. I mean, they came out their first album in 2014. So I had yet to have become a content creator. And I was really inspired by the fact that I had met these guys, drove down 3 hours to see them in Syracuse at some festival they only played for 30 minutes at. And they realized that we went there to see them and they went out of their way to be, really down to earth and talk and have these conversations. I became friends with, the bassist Ron and the lead singer Dustin and, a few of the other guys that, are there. And I just feel like that is how I want to be with people that, respect my craft and listen to my stuff. And, I've realized as I've done this, this is as much therapeutic for me as it is for some other people. And it's like, I love going live after a loss to be able to vent because I have a platform and I can do it. And while I'm doing it, it's not just, unnecessarily, tweeting about it. It's actually, spreading where people can go back and watch the replays and things like that. And when I get comments like, Jake, you made my day. I had such a bad day. And then you went live and started talking about Eric Weddle. And now all of a sudden my day is way better. It's like that stuff. I don't even think about that when I'm hitting record or, hitting live, because I don't even record videos anymore. I pretty much do everything live because I love the interaction. But I don't even think about that entirely right away.
Got to be the one take wonder, right?
Yeah, that's the thing is that, I'll make a mistake. I'll stutter a little bit. I have a little bit of a stutter. I got through it preschool, but I still, I stutter a little bit, strategically or not. I do it. I don't get nervous. It's more so when I'm trying to talk so quickly, sometimes it doesn't always come out as nice. But for the most part, I mean, I'm very, like, that's the thing. I like those one takes. I like doing the live reaction. I can't stand some of those live reaction videos where you can see that they've made, this is the 8th take. They've had 7 that they didn't like. And they're like, oh, live reaction of the new Spider-Man trailer. And it's like, I'm like, come on, like, who's going to buy that? You know what I'm saying? So, I'm more, in the moment, and that's why I do the live streams. And I love my community, and, it's probably the least toxic it could be. It's like, the way I took it is you take everyone from Twitter and you kind of just put them through a strainer, and all the annoying ratio, like, children that annoy the crap out of you, that are constantly just trying to get people canceled and are trying to ruin your day and are trying to be a troll. They don't, like, the strainer gets them. And so on YouTube, I get the people like you that really do appreciate what I do, but also have knowledge of their own and that they can add a little bit. I mean, I learn stuff in the comment section all the time. Someone told me yesterday during the stream that, Blake Countess was added because, when I'm going on and on and on and I'm answering questions, I'm not necessarily looking at Twitter when I'm live. So they tell me Blake Countess, reported by Jordan Rodrigue, Blake Countess was signed. Sherrod Niesman was signed. Like, I didn't know that. So, like, the people in the comment section help me just as much as I help them. So I like to say, like, it's a complimentary thing, and it's great. And I love doing it. And I love the fact that there's no toxicity. And if anybody shows it, I can just kick them right out. So it's great.
I love it, man. It sounds like you're doing it for the right reasons. From what I've seen, you're doing it for the right reasons, and your product really shows. So
appreciate that.
Continue on what you're doing. Continue providing all of the Rams fans with great coverage and knowledge, and you're welcome back anytime to chat Rams, NFL, and I had a couple of Marvel questions that I tucked away just in case, but I knew we probably wouldn't get to them. But I know you're a big Marvel fan as well.
If you want to throw them my way, you absolutely can. I'll give you a score prediction, by the way, 31-24 Rams over Cardinals.
I saw your score prediction. Yeah, 31-24. Yeah,
that's another thing. I don't just change my predictions based on, I've seen that before. I've seen people go on different shows and be like, oh, I'm going to go on the Steelers show. And since I know a lot of my fan base is going to listen, I'm going to say the Steelers win to kind of, kiss ass on that fan base. I've seen that stuff. No, I stick by my guns about that.
31-24. I haven't thrown out a prediction yet, so I'll throw out a prediction. But I think the Rams, it's going to be some interior line domination from Aaron Donald, and he's going to wreak havoc. I think we're going to see a 28-10 Rams victory.
Wow. It's going to be you're saying blowout.
Yeah, no, it's not blowout, but hey, it was 17-0 last week, and should have been a blowout, but it ended up being not comfortable.
Yeah, no, I feel that. I mean, I could see it going a blowout. I could see the Rams dominating. I could see the Rams barely winning. I could still see the Rams losing, but I find myself of the belief that they're going to win by at least 7.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, so I'll let you go ahead and throw to all of your content that you're doing right now, whether it be LA Rams, the MCU related stuff, You got your horror movie stuff. I see the Jason mask in the background. So Jake, throw it out to whatever you got coming out right now, and we'll wrap up the show with that.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like there's something on my I'll have to fix that. Yeah, so you can follow me at JK Bogan on Twitter, and you know, you can find all my stuff there. You can follow me at Downtown Rams as well. Blaine Grisak also runs Downtown Rams, the website and the Twitter account. We also have a Downtown Rams Instagram. I have a Twitter, JK Bogan on or not Twitter, on Instagram. I have an Instagram as well. If anyone's interested,
it'll be added to the bottom. You can check it out. Click the links to the bottom.
Yeah. It's more, you know, it's more personal. So if you want to get to know me, I guess on more of a personal level, if I haven't already kind of poured that out in live streams, you can do that. And then I write for the Game Day, NFL, NHL, and NBA betting. So if you need picks, I got your picks.
Beautiful. Yes, yeah, I know. I saw you've been following some NBA and some NHL stuff too. So love to see that as well. So all right. So I hope that everyone enjoyed that conversation with Jake. It was a lot of fun. We could have gone on for probably hours about the Rams, Cooper Cupp, Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford versus Jared Goff. That debate, we kind of got it taken out of the way. And Jake, let me know why I was so wrong in believing in Jared Goff and worrying about Matthew Stafford coming to the Rams. But we will look ahead to the Monday night game against the Arizona Cardinals. That will be a big one on the Super Wildcard weekend, and Sports Talk Line is going to have you covered for all of that. So make sure to check out the website for all the latest news about the games. Check my Twitter at Joshua Griffith 0. Make sure to like, subscribe down at the bottom to the video. And as always, this has been the Unnamed Sports Show. I have been your host, Joshua Griffith. Make sure to love sports, all sports.